Bengals have hitched their wagon to three guys as the core for the future: Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, Tee Higgins. All right, welcome in. It's the Breer Report for March the 19th. We are now a full week into the new league year, and most of free agency, the first wave of it at least, is taken care of. Still have some big names out there, and we're going to get to the biggest name out there. A lot of veteran receivers still available, guys like Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper and Brandon Cooks and Tyler Lockett still looking for teams. And then there are the quarterbacks, and a lot of the quarterback market right now being stopped up by one player in particular. And there has been some movement of late with what's happening with Aaron Rodgers. And I think once Aaron Rodgers signs, then some of the other pieces will fall into place, whether that's Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, on down the line. So where are things right now with Aaron Rodgers? I think the likelihood has been all along that it'd be the Steelers or the Giants. The Vikings did at least consider the possibility of looking at that. Now, as NFL Network reported this morning, the Vikings have sort of backed away a little bit after discussing it. That doesn't mean it's a hard no, but I think they want to see what they have with J.J. McCarthy. And I think the important thing to remember here is the approach that the Vikings have taken over the course of the last 2 months when you look at where their offseason is and how J.J. McCarthy's 2024 set them up for this. J.J. McCarthy had a really strong start to training camp, and we've been through all of this before, to the point where they discussed what would it look like if we put him out there. Then he gets hurt. He goes through the first surgery, goes through a second surgery, which is more of a cleanup, lost a whole bunch of weight, did wind up on the back half of the year traveling with the team. So he was on the headset during games. He was in quarterback meetings, but this is a 14-win team. This is a team that's stocked with veterans like Harrison Smith and Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard and Byron Murphy and Justin Jefferson and Christian Darrisaw and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and on down the line. And I think part of the feeling here is you owe it to the guys that you already have, the guys who won 14 games a year ago, to give them the best possible situation at quarterback. So looking at where J.J. McCarthy is and what he's gone through over the last year, I think the Vikings' philosophy going into the offseason was we need insurance against J.J. McCarthy, regardless of how highly we might think of J.J. McCarthy, of where we think 2025 might take him. We still need to get some insurance in the building. So they made an offer to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold got a multi-year offer in Seattle and a chance to be a long-term answer for Seattle at quarterback, which Minnesota could not compete with. They made an offer to Daniel Jones that was very similar to the one that he took in Indianapolis. Jones, of course, got $14 million on a one-year deal there. Jones made the decision, basically looking at it, that if he went to Indianapolis, he would have a better shot to seize and keep the starting job and perhaps be a long-term answer for the Colts. Didn't think that opportunity would be quite the same in Minnesota. So in both cases, the presence of J.J. McCarthy made it so for Jones and for Darnold, there were more attractive situations elsewhere just because of the opportunity involved. If you go get Aaron Rodgers, you're not presenting, you're changing the dynamic altogether. Whereas if you had brought back Darnold and he had a tough first month, you could go to McCarthy. Whereas if Jones comes in and competes and loses out to McCarthy, then you can just go with McCarthy. If you bring in Rodgers, the dynamic is completely different. You are handing the keys to Aaron Rodgers for 2025. That's it. There's no other way to do it, right? So at that point, you are consciously pressing pause on the J.J. McCarthy era, and you are saying we are going with Aaron Rodgers now. We are all in on Aaron Rodgers now. How is J.J. McCarthy going to handle that? How is that going to affect your future with J.J. McCarthy? All things that had to be considered. And I think as for right now, where they are right now, they want to get a look at J.J. McCarthy, and they want to give J.J. McCarthy a chance to be what they drafted him to be, which is the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. That wasn't going to happen if Rodgers wasn't there. So where does that leave Rodgers now? Leaves Rodgers in a spot where I think you've got two teams in the Steelers and the Giants that, again, are offering different things. I think the Giants situation is more analogous to what the Jets presented Rodgers 2 years ago, where the Giants have a promising young core of players, but they haven't won at a high level in forever. And so they're asking Rodgers to come in and be the guy who changes everything. The Jets asked Rodgers to be that guy for them. Injuries got in the way 2 years ago. I think overall organizational chaos got in the way last year. Can he be that guy for the Giants? They'd be asking him to be that guy in New York, the guy who could lift up a core that includes Malik Neighbors, Andrew Thomas, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. Like, can he be the guy that lifts that group up and takes them to the next level? Pittsburgh would be asking for something different. Pittsburgh would be asking him to jump on a moving train. The Steelers have been a good team forever. They never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin, but they haven't been to the highest level. They haven't been to the mountaintop in quite some time. So, like, what you would be looking at in Pittsburgh is a bunch of guys who've won a lot and a bunch of guys who are closer to being Rodgers' contemporaries than the guys in New York, or than the guys in New York. Yeah. And in Pittsburgh, you'd be looking at a guy in TJ Watt who's turning 31, Minka Fitzpatrick's turning 29. Cam Hayward is well into the back nine in his career. DK Metcalf coming over, he's a third contract guy. So you'd be looking at guys that would be operating with the same level of urgency that Rodgers is, because they don't know how much time they have left. So just looking at that, like, Pittsburgh looks like the situation that is a little bit more of a different way of attacking, going after and trying to get the most out of your last year than the Giants would be from the Jets. Right now, if I had to guess, I'd say Steelers. I'd say Giants. I would not rule out retirement, but I think the Steelers would be one, Giants would be two. Again, don't rule out retirement. All right, our second topic for today is the Cincinnati Bengals re-signing Ja'Marr Chase and Tee Higgins to monster deals. Tee Higgins gets almost $30 million a year. I think it's $28.75 million a year. Ja'Marr Chase's new money average is over $40 million a year. And now the Bengals have hitched their wagon to three guys as the core for the future: Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, Tee Higgins. And I've seen a lot of stuff out there. Investing that much into one area, one part of the game, is risky, and there is some risk involved. I can think of bigger problems to have than having to build a team around Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, and Tee Higgins. And I think this is doable, and there's an example in the past of a team doing it. But first, I want to really break down the Bengals situation in particular and give you guys an idea of what this means. First of all, the new money average of the three contracts is about $125 million. That's not really all that relevant because they're folding in old money into the new money. So the true averages of the contracts is about $110 million. So $110 million per year on a salary cap that will likely rise to $300 million next year. We're talking about three guys taking up about a 30-year salary cap on average over the life of their deals. It's not the end of the world. It does make certain things more challenging, and it does set precedents with your other players. But I think it puts you in a position where you can still build. You just have to be strategic about the way that you do it. And I think there is an example, again, out there of a team that did this effectively for a long period of time, and that's the Bill Polian and Tony Dungy Indianapolis Colts. When the Colts fired Jim Mora a generation ago, they were looking at a core of players that were going to make a lot of money: Peyton Manning, Edgerrin James, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, Dallas Clark, Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis. So you have this core of players that were going to make you top heavy from a salary cap perspective if you wanted to keep that core together. So part of the strategy in hiring Tony Dungy was he has a simple defense that gets guys playing fast and that can get rookies ready to go quickly. The philosophy there was we need to get guys onto the field fast so we can get the most out of them while they're under cost control, while they're on their rookie contracts. And we will continue to churn those positions. And that's what the Colts did. Now, they had some mainstays on defense. I mentioned Mathis. Gary Brackett was another one, Dwight Freeney. But they were very fungible everywhere else on the defensive side of the ball, and that was strategic. I think that's where the Bengals are right now. Is you look at where they are defensively. They have Trey Hendrickson. We'll see if they can get him extended. They have Logan Wilson signed long-term. You look at the rest of their defense, they need a lot of work. So this is going to put the pressure on Duke Tobin, their personnel chief, and the defensive coaches to get the most out of the players early in their careers, because you're going to be filling in with some guys that are going to be at a lower cost that are going to come through the draft. It can be done. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it can be done. And again, you're going to be asking a little less of your defense because presumably you'll be playing with leads because of the offense that you have. And I think one bonus here is their new defensive coordinator, Al Golden, is coming from Notre Dame and has a ton of experience in college football. And so having a coordinator like that is a huge bonus because he knows what's coming out of college football. He has an idea for where those guys are from a learning standpoint. And he's going to be able to bring some institutional knowledge and getting his defense to a place where it's user-friendly for guys in their first, second, third years. So I think the Bengals will be fine. I think they did the right thing in getting these guys signed up. And keeping your quarterback happy is never a bad thing. And I know Joe Burrow was really happy with the developments of the last few days. Finally, our third topic, Sam Darnold. We did a big piece with him on Monday on the whole process the Seahawks went through, the process that Sam Darnold went through, and then just the big picture topic of reclamation projects at quarterback. I urge you guys to check it out. I do want to go back on what we talked about in our Vikings item on Darnold's mindset here. And yes, the deal sets up where the Seahawks can escape it after a year. It's similar to the structure of the Geno Smith deal 2 years ago in Seattle, and not that dissimilar from the structure of the Baker Mayfield deal done last year in Tampa. I think what Sam was looking for here, I know what Sam was looking for here, was a place where he could settle in and be a multi-year starter after everything that he'd been through. And if you want to take it back to where the Jets were coming out of the 2020 season, new coach, new GM, that didn't have a hand in drafting him, wind up trading him to the Carolina Panthers. He spends a year as the Panthers starting quarterback. The next year, Baker Mayfield is brought in to be the starter. Sam is the backup for the most of the year. He starts at the end of the year. Then he spends a year in San Francisco as the backup, then a year in Minnesota. We know how that went last year under Kevin O'Connell. He wanted to go to a place where he'd be able to settle in and grow with a team and have a chance to make a team his own. So is Sam Darnold in a position where he is assured of being the Seahawks quarterback in 2026, 2027? No, he's not. But I think if he had gotten $10 million, $15 million extra in guaranteed money, it would have obviously made him feel a little bit better. And I think financially it would have been the right thing. But I don't know that it would have made it any more likely that if he didn't play well, that he would get a second shot in Seattle in 2026. He has to play well to continue as the Seahawks quarterback. And that's really what he wanted, was the opportunity to go someplace, win a job, and keep a job. And he knew what he was getting into last year in Minnesota. When he signed, he knew it was a possibility. The Vikings were going to take a quarterback in the first round. They tried to trade up to get Drake May. They wind up with J.J. McCarthy. The year before that, he knew he was going to San Francisco to be Brock Purdy's backup. The year before that, in Carolina, he was situated as Baker Mayfield's backup. So it's been a while since Sam Darnold's been in a position where a team has said to him, yes, come in, be our starting quarterback. And if this works out, this could wind up being a 5-year thing, a 10-year thing. Like, let's see how it goes. That's what he has in Seattle. It's all he was really looking for, I think, in finding a new home. It was going to be tough for Minnesota ever to afford that to him. Pittsburgh didn't quite get there where they were willing to say, okay, we'll do multi-years with you. They were very interested in him. And so I think Seattle's a perfect spot for him. It's back in the West Coast. And I really like what the Seahawks have done this offseason. When things went the wrong way, and I love Geno as a player, when things went the wrong way in the Geno contract negotiation, they were able to pivot, get a third-round pick for him, get a 2 for DK Metcalf. With the knowledge they probably weren't signing him long-term, you save the money to sign guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Charles Cross, Boye Mafe, maybe Abe Lucas if he bounces back. Down the line, Devin Witherspoon. So you have now the resources to take care of some of your guys in-house. And you have your new quarterback. You have 5 picks in the top 100. And again, I like the idea of Sam Darnold going forward in a system he's familiar with. Remember, he was with Clint Kubiak in San Francisco, and Kubiak's system isn't that different from Kevin O'Connell's, to really put some roots down and become a team starting quarterback. So again, this is one, look at the money 100%. It does tell you some things, but also look at the intention of both sides. The intention of both sides here is to try to create a relationship that'll last well beyond the 2025 season. Appreciate you guys coming out. We are going to be off until next week. Our video people will be a little more focused on March Madness over the next few days. So be sure to check out all of that on SI's social channels, on our YouTube channel. Lots of basketball to dive into over the next couple of days. Of course, we will have more football for you on the site. We get the print mailbag going up later today. Of course, I'll have all my normal Monday stuff next week. And then next Tuesday, we'll be back with another Breer Report. I'll see you guys then.